Exploring East Asia. Great. Exploring East Asia through illustrative juvenile literature. And so this is a foundational seminar, which means it's going to cover sort of cover the waterfront in terms of thinking about especially China, Japan, and Korea. But we are going to have some focus, some emphasis on juvenile literature, so children's books, graphic novels. This will take close to 3 hours. We will have a break in the middle. Why don't I go ahead and share my screen just to address, where we're located, since you're going to be introducing yourselves later tonight. And may as well clarify. So Shepherd University is on the very, very eastern edge of West Virginia. We're an hour or so outside of DC. So the image on the right side of your screen shows most of the campus. It's a pretty small school. And we're on the right side of the river. On the left side of the river, as you see this photo, that's Maryland. So it's just about a 15-minute walk away, and that's the Potomac River leading down to DC. So we're about, half an hour drive north of Virginia, and then maybe about 45 minutes or so south of Pennsylvania. So I think a fair number of you are located in Pennsylvania or in Ohio or Virginia, so you're in contiguous states. Before I get into too much of my material, I want to point out that there's something called an entry survey that you will need to fill out after we're done tonight, between the end of tonight and the first day of the seminar on June 12th. So later tonight, Jason's going to show where the entry survey is located, but that's something that's important to get going on. I want to introduce some of the books that you're going to be getting as part of this seminar. So first of all, there's a textbook called History of East Asia by Charles Holcomb. We will have certain assignments from that are listed in the syllabus. So that'll provide some important background. On the first day of the seminar proper, June 12th, David Kenley will speak to us, and he has written a short book called Modern Chinese History. So you'll need to read this by the first day. Again, June 12th, 9 to 12 a.m. So Dave will be talking to us. He's actually a quite important figure in NCTA. The very first time that I did one of these at Shepherd, I was co-leading it with him. He was at Elizabethtown College. Now he's the Dean of College of Arts and Humanities over at Dakota State University. Then the next book you're getting, it's a graphic novel called Barefoot Gen. Are any of you familiar with this? Any of you heard of Barefoot Gen? It's the first graphic novel I had ever heard of. And it was before graphic novels were a thing, really. It's actually one of a number of volumes that this individual, Keiji Nakazawa, has done. He had personally experienced the atomic bombing of Hiroshima in 1945, but this is sort of a fictionalized version of his experiences. And it's just one volume that he wrote, and we're going to be having Michael Anserniglia come in and talk about it on, I think it's day 4, so Thursday of the first week. Then we are very privileged to have Yang Suk Choi speak to us. So she's going to be on Friday of the first week. This is her most famous book, The Name Jar, but she's done a number of works, many of them set in the United States, but some set in Asia as well. So I think she's going to be coming to us actually from Korea, even though I think she lives in the United States the majority of the time, but when we see her, she's going to be in Korea Then the second week of the seminar, Monday of the second week, we have GB Tran, who is the author of this graphic novel here called Vietnamerica. And so he's a Vietnamese American, but his parents had immigrated here, and he's looking in this book at kind of what made them who they were in the United States. Why did they act as they acted when he was a kid? He's kind of on a sort of voyage of discovery in Vietnam. So he will be our one graphic memoir author and illustrator whom we will have. So remember, you're getting all of these books in a single box. Then we have For Immigrants manga. So manga are animated cartoons. This one's from the early 20th century. And it's by Henry Kiyama. So he was Japanese. He immigrated to the United States, stayed here for about 20 years, and wrote some comics about his experiences in the US. And he actually writes in a mixture of Japanese and English. This has been translated entirely into English, but using different fonts to indicate what was originally in Japanese, what was originally in English. So it's not Henry Kiyama whom we're going to have speaking with us, but rather Frederick Schott, who is the translator and also an individual who's done a good deal of research about this book. And really, Frederick Schott is a figure who is important in introducing manga itself to the United States back in the 1980s. He's written on a number of subjects. And then finally, we've got 18 Vats of Water by Jili Jiang. I had invited Jili Jiang to speak to us at the seminar, but her father is in very ill health over in Shanghai, so she's going to be there taking care of him. However, we're using this book pertaining to calligraphy. It's going to be used by Haixia Wang, who is speaker at the University of Pittsburgh, who's going to be showing us how to do calligraphy on the final day. So the Friday of the second week of the seminar. And I'll be sending out calligraphy kits. So brushes and what's called magic paper, which is where you sort of put water on the tip of your brush, and then you can make marks on a special kind of sheet. But after a couple of minutes, those marks disappear. So you don't have the mess of dealing with like black ink getting all over the place, basically. So these are the items, these 7 books plus the calligraphy brushes will be coming through.
Do I take off my socks when we get there?
Pardon? Victoria, I couldn't hear you.
I think she just accidentally got unmuted. That was...
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Are there any questions about what will be sent to you? All 3, of course. For us to send you these items, you will need to notify us within the next 48 hours that you are indeed planning to take the seminar and fulfill its requirements. So don't do that yet. Wait until the orientation session is finished tonight. But yeah, we'll need to have it confirmed that you're in this for the long haul, and then we'll be sending these items to you. Any questions so far? Questions so far? Okay. I should introduce a little about NCTA itself. I find its backstory interesting and kind of worth being aware of. Let's see if I can move forward here. Yeah. So the story behind NCTA, the backstory, goes back to a company called American Asiatic Underwriters in Shanghai in 1919, although this building's actually in Hong Kong. So American Asiatic Underwriters would eventually become AIG, or American Insurance Group. And AIG moved its headquarters to the US at the start of World War II, but it originally come from this large insurance company originally came from China. And the real founder of this was somebody named Cornelius Starr, but he recruited an individual named Mansfield Freeman to be the effectual co-founder. And that's kind of the, that's not what I expected. Here's Mansfield. Yes, he was originally a scholar studying Chinese philosophy in China, but he mentored a group of students at Tsinghua University in Beijing who won a contest for selling life insurance. And that led Mr. Starr to recruit Mansfield, the teacher, to help him with his new insurance company. So Houghton, whom you see on the right side of your screen, this is Mansfield's son. He grew up in Shanghai in the 1930s, moved to Japan after the Communist Revolution in China in 1949 and headed AIG's operations there. Houghton eventually became the head of AIG overall. And I should note that AIG recently became the largest US company ever born outside the United States. So when Houghton retired in the 1990s, he founded the Freeman Foundation. And it's this foundation that sponsors NCTA. So it's one of the foundation's projects. And the Freeman Foundation is now run by Houghton's son, Graham. So it's now the third generation, in effect, of this family and its connections with East Asia. So the overall structure of the seminar is, first we have this, this orientation session tonight. Then we have the 2 weeks in mid-June, from June 12th to June 23rd, with the break for a weekend in the middle. And then we have a follow-up session in September, which will also be 3 hours in length. So that's going to equal 36 hours total. And Jason can discuss with you later when a good time, when a good date, and when a good time for the follow-up session might be. So right now we're just saying it's sometime in the month of September. Now there are several requirements associated with, with this seminar. The first is attendance. If you miss once and let us know in advance, we may be able to make other arrangements, but in general, you need to be working hard to attend as much as possible. Second, doing the assigned readings that are listed on the syllabus, submitting brief but reflective responses to them. So you need to be better than students often are at looking ahead on the syllabus, although we also will be reminding you as well what's coming up. And then some other items, I'm going to mention them briefly now, but we will talk about them more during the seminar. So one is creating a lesson plan. One is writing a reflective paper on the seminar experience. One is putting up a review of a book or movie related to teaching materials associated with East Asia on EAGLE. EAGLE, so that's the East Asia Gateway for Linking Educators. And then finally, there's submitting a mini grant request for materials worth $100 to be sent to you. And actually, the mini grant request is required because NCTA is eager to get Asia-related materials into school classrooms. Once mini grants are approved, those items will be sent to you and they should reach you before the follow-up session. And I should note, as we're looking forward into May, early June, I'll be away for a week in mid-May, May 14th to the 20th. I may also be away in Indiana right around the end of the month for a couple of days, but otherwise, both Jason and I will be around between now and the beginning of the semester in the middle of next month. Are there any questions? Any questions about anything?
David, one thing I just thought of too,
Yeah.
if anyone's interested in continuing ed credit, that's
Right.
That's another option. Is there anyone that's interested in continuing ed credit for this session?
I'm not sure.
Okay. If you are, just let us know. We can take care of that through, there's a little bit of, you have to do something through our university as
Okay.
far as that goes. So.
Right, so the EDPD credit, or Education Professional Development Credit, it goes through a different bureaucracy than NCTA. It's through Shepherd, and I think Shepherd charges for it. It's like $178, but that can come out of, that can be something that your stipend actually covers. And I think it's either, I'd have to look, but it's either Section 79 or 81. Is the one that is associated with this. It would be 3 credits.
I'll be sure to get that out to everyone if anyone is interested in it, in the section number and everything, and how to register, or who we need to contact and all. But if anyone is interested in continuing ed, just let us know, let me know, and we'll take care of it or help you with the process.
Hey, Jason, did you have any other announcements?
That was the big one. I just jotted down. I mean, I think we're gonna go over everything when we do like the icebreakers and get to know, but I think that was pretty much it. That was a nice intro on Shepherd, by the way. By the way, we played for been a national semifinalist in football the last
All
couple
right.
of years at our level, so small but mighty.
Mhm. All right, well, should I just go ahead and go into my presentation?
I think if you're ready and everyone's ready,
Heard from anyone else in the group, since there are several people missing?
no. And actually, I just send out another plea.
Okay. All right, well, I'm grateful to everybody who is here today, because this is very, very important stuff, especially right now, as I'm going to get into. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and begin my 6 basic points about East Asia presentation. So I guess I will just start by putting up my 6 points. And this is something that, here's our map again. Jason, I think you can put this PowerPoint up on the Weebly site that Jason will be presenting later tonight. So there's a website associated with this seminar. So I'm going to talk about each of these points. First off, China was and is the center of East Asia. So for the purposes of this seminar, East Asia refers to China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. So I'll be focusing mostly on the first 3. However, as I mentioned, we will have a presentation later on day 6 of the seminar by the author of that graphic novel pertaining to Vietnam, Vietnamerica. So traditionally, the tendency has been for various trends to start in China and then spread to neighboring countries. So a few examples would include rice cultivation, eating with chopsticks, writing characters with long brushes, even the religion of Buddhism, which actually comes over from India, first became popular in other parts of East Asia after a number of Chinese adopted it. And I say all of that even though my own specialty is modern Japan, not China. I have to acknowledge China's central influence on a country like Japan, whether we're looking at religion, art, the writing system, morality, eating practices, or anything else. So as I state here on this image, in the beginning, there was China. Now, this is not to deny Japan or Korea their own cultural creativity. They've got creativity in spades. And they had entirely independent cultures back in their earliest times that strongly influenced their overall characters to this day. What I am claiming is that you don't have to look far to find Chinese influence. And one example of this is actually language. In Chinese, the word for Chinese character, like here we have 2 characters up here. The word for Chinese character is Hanzi, or Han letters. Letters as they were first written during the Han Dynasty 2,000 years ago. Hanzi. So that is, this character is pronounced Han, and then the character to its right on your screen is pronounced Z. Now, Japanese also uses Chinese characters as part of its writing system. In Japanese, these are called kanji, which is a different pronunciation of these same 2 characters. Now, the Korean language uses characters a lot less, but students still learn a fair number of them in school. And in Korean, the same two characters we see here are pronounced Hanja, which sounds a lot like Hansa or kanji. Now, as languages, Chinese is in one language family, Sino-Altaic, while Japanese and Korean are in another. Chinese is grammatically very different from the other two. Yet, thanks to Chinese, the writing systems are all related and certain terms are related as well. So despite the many differences among China, Japan, and Korea, both in the past and today, the Chinese heritage that they broadly share makes the region at least a somewhat coherent cultural whole. So that's the first point. Point number one, Chinese is the earliest, the biggest, and for most of its history, the most influential of the countries we're looking at. Point number two is that in East Asia, tradition does not speak with one voice. China itself has generated different religious and philosophical viewpoints. This is important, and it's easy to lose sight of when Westerners speak broadly about Asian traditions. So let's think for a moment about China in, let's say, 500 BCE. By this time, a dynasty known as the Zhou dynasty had lasted about 600 years and was on the skids. The country was dividing into independent kingdoms that were making war on each other. Self-promoting scholars started traveling to these kingdoms to give their kings advice and hopefully get paid for it. Different scholars pushed different solutions to the chaos of the times. One group were the Confucians, named after Confucius, or Kongfuzi in Chinese. So Confucians held that a virtuous king could reunite the country by displaying and promoting virtue, by which they meant the correct performance of social roles, such as roles within the family. Another group, the Taoists, held that nature, rather than correct social behavior, would lead to a looser, healthier social order with small groups living close to the land. And then a third group, the legalists, held that rulers should strictly enforce laws as the way to forge order out of chaos. So, virtue, nature, law. These are three very different ways to restore social order. And there were other schools of thought too. These are just the three with the longest afterlife. And I should note that we'll have a presentation on ancient Chinese worldviews on day 7. That's Cindy McNulty when she comes in to speak. So the point is that this is really just one example of how not everyone is marching in lockstep, agreeing on what people ought to be doing or why. Rather, there can be deep disagreements, some cordial and some not. In Korea, for example, it's all right if the light's out for the moment. In Korea, if two noble or Yangban families had a falling out, their children would often feel obliged to their respective parents to maintain the disagreement that their parents had started. In effect, disharmony could be inherited, passed down like with the Hatfields and the McCoys in American history. Now, even when a philosophy is well established, it can still be applied in new and different ways. So, for example, Confucianism has tended to promote turning to the past for models as to how to behave in the present. Yet in the late 19th century, a popular Chinese figure named Kang Youwei argued that Confucius was actually a reformer rather than a conservator of the past. And Kang Youwei could point to certain passages in classic Confucian texts to make his case. The point is to resist the temptation to think that East Asia equals tradition, and that tradition in any way, shape, or form equals stagnation. The very fact that China and Japan, respectively, are the second and third largest economies on Earth would suggest otherwise. So that's the second point. And before I make the third, I am going to go ahead and turn on the light since it's eventually going to get dark here. I'll be right back. By the way, if you see the boxes behind me in both directions, those are the boxes of books that we'll be sending you. Okay, point number three. Point number three, despite everything that I just said, collective identity tends to be important in East Asia. And let's go ahead and use names as an example. You may have heard of North Korea's current leader, Kim Jong-un. Kim is his family name, and Jong-un then is his personal name. Family names come first. Family names come first. And you might also have heard of a famous 20th century Chinese communist leader named Mao Zedong. Once again, Mao is the family name. Zedong is the personal name. As a badge of identity, family names come first in China, Korea, and Japan. And this is a point that it's worth hammering home a little bit with students, because I find even college seniors get this mixed up. And they'll be referring like in a paper to Zedong, as though they're on a first name basis with this person, which I just find completely bizarre. But I do want to admit that this can get confusing when you're reading in English, because sometimes in English, a name is written with East Asian name order. Sometimes it's written with Western name order, particularly if you're looking at, let's say, novelists. Like there's a Japanese novelist, Mishima Yukio, but you'll sometimes see his name as Yukio Mishima. That's so that librarians can figure out how to sort of group his books together in the correct place on library shelves. So basically, rule of thumb is if you're reading something and someone is referred to by two names once, and then afterwards by just one name, that one name is probably their family name. So remember, this is part of my theme here of collective identity. So another example of this is when Japanese company employees introduce themselves in a business context. Their self-introductions will bring out this focus on the collective. So like if I introduce myself in English, I might say, hi, I'm Dave Gordon, professor of history at Shepherd University. But the equivalent in Japanese would be something along the lines of, I'm Shepherd University's history department's Gordon David. So Shepherd Dagaku no Rekshigakubu no Gordon Davido, with my personal name trailing off at the end. In other words, we've gone from the larger collectives down to me over at the end. And the same type of order applies to addresses on envelopes. Like in the United States, we start with the individual, then we move on to the street, the city, the state, eventually maybe the country. But in East Asia, the practice will be the reverse, with the individual name, family name first, coming last, among the lines listed. In Korea, this is evidently taken even further. When someone in Korea, either Korea, I think, talks about their country, their company, even their parents, they will typically say, our country, our company, our mother or father, even if the person they're talking with doesn't have the same country or company or parents. Using our or uri in Korean is just a way of indicating that you're not unique. After all, the country is not your personal property, nor is the company that you work at. And even if you're the only child of your parents, you're not the only person who has parents or a spouse or children or whatever. So using our or uri shows that you're aligning your circumstances broadly with those of others around you. You're acknowledging that you're an ordinary person within your context. This is apparently confusing to some people who are just learning Korean. The person they're speaking with speaks of our brother, and they're like, wait a minute, I don't have the same brother you have. How does this work? But again, it's this emphasis on collective identity. And it all reminds me of the famous Japanese expression, derukui wa utareru, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. The individualism tends not to be a major virtue in this context. So again, that's point number 3. Number 4, let's reinforce one more stereotype while we're at it. It's true that there tends to be an emphasis on respect for parents and elders generally in East Asia. This remains true, usually, whether a country is communist, such as China or North Korea, or anti-communist, such as Japan, South Korea, Taiwan. The theme of respect for elders typically endures. I've called this respect, but especially towards one's own parents, this is really more a matter of gratitude. Gratitude for what? Well, let's think about this by doing a comparison with Western monotheism, say Christianity, Judaism, Islam. According to Western monotheism, every person owes total loyalty to God. God created the world, monotheist will say, and God created you. By creating you, God gave you access to all the blessings of creation. God gives you the ability, should you so choose, even to rebel against God. In other words, even that ability would come from God. So, monotheist will say, you owe God continuous thankfulness for this wraparound gift of life. Now, whether you personally think in these terms or not, you're probably familiar with this line of thought. So let's change it up a bit, substituting parents for God. Now, your parents didn't create the world, obviously. However, by creating you and sustaining you with food, with shelter, with the gift of language, your parents have given you access to all that the world has to offer. Even if you choose to rebel against your parents, they're actually the ones who made it possible for you to exist, to make decisions, and thus even to rebel. So we could say you owe your parents continuous thankfulness for this wraparound gift of life, not just while you're young, but throughout your lifespan. Now, continuing on this theme of family, elders, various East Asians, for their part, may worship various gods, but usually the aim is to acquire blessings for their family. So family is the real goal here. And indeed, family in the form of deceased ancestors may be revered virtually as a god. A wide variety of people in East Asia dream of departed family members, have mental conversations with departed family members, and so on. For example, in various Korean novels I've read, the protagonist will go up into the mountains to where the ancestors' graves are located, take out a bottle of some hard liquor, start drinking, and converse with his ancestors in a way that makes me think of therapy. Now, a number of Westerners also have some sort of relationship with departed family members. But what I've witnessed or read about in East Asia tends to be more intense. So point number 4, emphasis on parents, emphasis on ancestors. Family is where a person learns how to be a human being. Point number 5, without exception, all East Asian nations have modernized. They've got factories, power grids, cars, TVs, cell phones, and so forth. China has more cell phone users than any other country on earth. Meanwhile, South Korea has a more pervasive use of the internet than any other country on earth. This process was not easy anywhere in the region. Japan underwent it first in the later 19th century, becoming one of the few countries outside of the West not to be colonized by powerful Western nations. And I'll be talking about the specifics of that rapid modernization on day 5, on Friday of the first week. Now, China experienced urban modernization early in the 20th century, but modernization didn't reach the countryside until the Communist Party brought in collective mechanized agriculture in the 1950s. The Communist Party did some of this modernization carefully, making sure that peasants could repair whatever machines they were using. On the other hand, some of the changes they did in a hurry, as for example, when they tried to expand their iron industry in the later 1950s by having peasants build crude backyard furnaces, which didn't produce much iron. And as for the Koreas, both Koreas pushed themselves to modernize fast following the Korean War in the early 1950s. Now, all of these changes took place much more quickly than they did in places that modernized earlier, such as England or the United States. The East Asian countries have been in a hurry, and that has created certain problems. If a government pushes fast modernization, it probably allows the folks in charge of the modernization to pollute as much as they like, pay as little tax as they like, and so forth. And that's going to create political turmoil down the road. War, too, has been a major agent of change in all of our countries, actually. And some of the psychological dislocations that the wars have caused have been especially acute. I don't want to be overly grim, since there are also lots of people in all these countries enjoying their everyday lives quietly, or not so quietly. But the modern way of life that you see around you when visiting East Asia's cities is the product of a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It did not appear without a struggle. Any questions before I go on to my last point? Because my last point will be something that I will specifically open up for discussion. Shitsumon ga arimasu ka? Yomayo wanti. Any questions? Okay. Okay, point number 6. So my final point actually refers back to China, which I've already presented as the center of East Asia. Today, teaching about China can be a bit of a minefield. Students are interested, but at least at the higher grades, some of them only want to learn about China in order to learn about its negative side. Political rhetoric about China in the past few years has been harsh, as you know. Think of former President Trump's joke about Kung Flu as an example. When a president is mocking a country using an overtly racist joke, you know things are getting bad. COVID-19 has inspired conspiracy theories, including the idea that China deliberately spread COVID internationally in order to harm its rivals, such as the US. So the assumption here is that the Chinese government was willing to harm some of its own people in order to make this happen. Anyway, this is part of the background noise that's out there as we, as instructors, try to teach about China, ancient and modern. Now, it's true that the current Chinese government has various faults. China's critics in the US point these out. The threatening approach to Taiwan, the suppression of free speech in Hong Kong, the harsh treatment of Tibetans and Uyghurs, and so forth. At the higher grades, at least, teaching the negative side is a necessary part of providing a full picture of China today. However, by itself, repeated endlessly, it becomes a very one-sided picture. And I'm reminded of a famous poem by American poet Bret Harte from 1870. So Hart wrote about a fictitious card game between three people, two of them Caucasians and one Chinese, in which all three participants were cheating, but the Chinese figure cheated most effectively. So in the poem, the Caucasians beat up the Chinese figure at the end. Hart meant the poem as a satire on white racism. However, it was universally welcomed by those very racist and reprinted in virtually every American newspaper of the time. It became one of the most famous widespread poems in the US in the 19th century. And there even were like sort of various objects of merchandise that were based on this poem. And there's a line in the poem, you know, it's spoken by one of the Caucasian figures. It says, quote, for thoughts that are dark and tricks that are vain, the heathen Chinese is peculiar, unquote. At least at the higher grades, this way of thinking that Chinese are sneaky and menacing continues to underlie the way some students view China and its actions even now, more than 150 years after Hart's poem appeared. So the question I'm going to throw out to you in a minute is, how should teachers respond? If you deny all the negatives, you can sound defensive and overprotective. But if you embrace the negatives, you're just pandering to the worst instincts of the crowd. Now, to a fair degree, I think we simply need to present a fuller alternative picture. It's good to clarify that there are a range of views and experiences within China, as I pointed out earlier, with its ancient philosophies. And obviously, there's an even greater range of ideas, outlooks, et cetera, in East Asia as a whole. One thing that can help, I think, is to try to avoid saying things like the Chinese think and the Chinese feel. Even if I'm talking about circumstances from hundreds of years ago, I'll tend to use phrases like many Chinese thought or most Chinese felt instead. And likewise, if I'm speaking about Japan or Korea. And that serves as a reminder that China and every country is internally complex. Beyond that, I don't have a great solution to this issue. I only want to suggest that the US's own history of interactions with Asia and Asians continues to affect the way that Americans of various ethnicities think about Asia today. So does anyone have any ideas about how to deal effectively with the rigidly anti-China mindset that is gradually taking shape? And Kenitra, I see that you've joined us. Good evening.
Hi, I can chime in.
You can go ahead and introduce yourself too.
Oh, okay. So my name is Lindsay Shade. I teach 7th grade world history, so it's mostly ancient stuff. So we do talk about China every year, and in my experience, this is my 8th year of teaching. Every time because we start obviously with like Mesopotamia and Egypt, you know, those river valley civilizations, and then when we make it over to the Indus River Valley and ancient China, it's always because they're vastly different from Mesopotamia and Egypt. Like culturally, everything is very, very different. And so it's very much a culture shock. I wouldn't say it's a huge culture shock. I mean, it's very much a snapshot, because at the 7th grade level, we're not digging really in deep with the content. I mean, because there's skills, there's a lot of skills based kind of lessons and things like that. I'm trying to get them to understand, the flow of time and, people's impact on history and things like that. But every year I do hear those comments. And especially I think it has been exacerbated by the pandemic. But they're typically very flippant. Like it's clearly like a direct, I think, regurgitation of whatever is probably playing on their news at home. And so it depends for me, it is always dependent on like the child too, because like sometimes kids will say things that just to get a reaction, and I typically don't give it to them, or I'll try not to. But if it's something that I think needs a further discussion, I think it's always important to kind of have that discussion. But I do think I had not actually thought about what you had said about changing it from the Chinese felt to many Chinese felt. I think that's very That's a good, interesting way to word it. Because you're right, it's a little bit too complex to break down into just one whole grouping. And I do try to explain that part to them, that it is very, there's a lot of factors that go into, and I think that it's just a matter of like, you know, trying to just teach them more than what they're hearing wherever they're hearing it, you know, because like it is very much a narrow-minded picture. Now, I also teach at a school that I don't have like a ton of parental involvement overall. So I think that there's a little more flexibility in that, which that sounds bad, but you know what I'm saying? Like I don't typically get a lot of clap back in the content, you know, that I'm teaching. Not that I really should, because I'm not teaching anything bad, but you know, there's not a lot of you know, I don't ever have typically parents angry about the things I'm teaching. Now I know at other schools that's probably very different. But you know, and I think in that instance, it's just very easy to draw it right back to the standards and just be like, you know, well, actually, this is, you know, the point that we're trying to teach here is, you know, establishing how civilization started or whatever. But I do think that, you know, providing them with a thorough picture and understanding, because they don't know, it is very different from them. But I also think it's interesting. I'm kind of rambling, I'm sorry, but I also think it's kind of interesting because at this age too, and this is why I signed up for the seminar, is that on the same token, there's also a significant amount of interest in like East Asian literature, especially the graphic novels. Like they are very into that kind of thing, and I find that to be very interesting. So I'm interested to learn from the seminar, like ways to incorporate that, because it's kind of, they're already kind of hooked on that. A lot of them, not every kid, but like a lot more than probably were when I was in middle school. And I think that because I actually have started to dabble in it, just to, you know, kind of relate to them. And I have found myself learning interesting things that I never knew before about, you know, Japan and, you know, their daily life and just customs and things that they do. And I think, I mean, and they're picking up on that kind of stuff too. So I just find that to be, I think that this is a good way to kind of, you know, introduce it without it being a, you know, such a radical type of, you know, thing, if that makes sense, you know.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks, Lindsay. Others?
Yeah, I'll hop in. I also
Hey,
do
can you
7.
turn your camera on? Are you in
Yeah,
position to do?
probably. Let's see. Yes, I can. I did it. Similar to Lindsay, I'm 7th grade social studies, so ancient world history. I love talking to the kids about the nuance, because as middle schoolers, they're figuring out all the like people around them aren't like them. And when we study civilization, just the word itself starts edging out people that aren't civilized. And this leads right into that sort of stereotypical aspect. So what do they know about China and East Asia? A lot of stereotypes, not necessarily any nuance. And, you know, delving into history is the delving into the nuance and seeing what we see and where do these stereotypes come from. And that's a little high level for 7th graders, but they like to think like adults. And this starts giving them the baby steps into that. So I love kind of the way I was furiously writing down the breakdown between communal focus versus like our American independent focused. And that's just those are such nice polar opposites that becomes a nice way that I think a 7th grader could chew on that and see it.
Thank you. Thanks very much. See, Kenitra, do you have any thoughts? Or Cindy?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's me. Well, so
Sorry.
That's right.
oh, my turn.
Yeah, Cindy can go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Well, actually, I'm not a K-12 teacher, but I'm a college language instructor. So I'm not really handled with like history or social study like you guys do. So dealing with like adult students, I find they're kind of like more open-minded, because in our college, we are actually have religious study, we have history department, and we have like political science. So I would say our professor kind of describe Chinese history and culture in a very positive way, and they dig dig it to the very deep level, like Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, and talk about it like filial piety, show respect to ancestry, to ancestor and parents. So my college actually is in the middle of nowhere. If you look at the map in the middle, yeah, we are kind of really red. So I kind of surprised, like our campus is not that red. So yeah, I really appreciate, and my students take my course. Apparently they are interested in the language, so they want to know more about the language, grammar, and also the culture. And we have kind of decent community. I mean, international community. We have Nepal students and Mongolia, Vietnamese. So I think we're kind of share that value system, well, more or less. So I don't really experience much that kind of a hostile or negative comment. But sometimes I agree. Some of the students try to testing like your boundary and ask some ignorance question. But you know, they're 18 years old, and if you just keep telling them like, you know, people are people, government are government, and they will buy your story and they show respect. So yeah, I mean, I'm just telling them my opinion, and I will say, oh, you know, it's my opinion, and apparently I'm Chinese, right? So I'm not saying like I'm Chinese, so I know everything, right? I'm just telling you my perspective and my experience. And remember, we have generation gap. Like my parents' experience is different from mine. So there is kind of individualized. So I think they kind of understand. Yeah.
Oh, good. Right, thank you. Let's see,
No
Kenitra.
problem.
Yes, it's Kenitra.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I want to
sorry.
chime into what the first young lady was speaking about. I forgot her name, but I am a library media specialist at an urban school in Milwaukee, and it's a K through 12 school. So I get a lot of the graphic novels, and they're obsessed with graphic novels. And I wanted to see from the, I want to learn more about the Japanese, because I already been to China and like Thailand. And I just want to, hopefully we're talking about stereotypes. Well, like a lot of Eastern Asians have stereotypes about other people as well. So I just want to see where they're getting their stereotypes. And being that when I went to China, my experience was interesting, different than Thailand. But yes, because I lived abroad for over 9 years in Doha, Qatar. So I used to visit a lot of countries. So I'm very worldly, you could say. So I see the world different, but I would love to dabble in that and stuff, and definitely, hopefully, learn a little bit more of the Japanese culture and the obsession with this graphic novels for the students, you know, and give them a little more background on it, because I've never been to Japan, but I can give them, you know, background on China and Thailand, but not Japan. So hopefully you'll dabble into more of that. So yes.
They'll be giving 2 presentations pertaining to Japan, and there are some others as well. Very good.
All righty.
Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie.
Oh, bye. It's over?
I'm just calling on the next person, but thank you.
Okay, he's like, bye.
I guess I would say that it kind of depends on who you're working with. So in different groupings. So some people are pretty open and excited and, you know, want to take a trip and, you know, visit and are very interested in learning the language, et cetera. And other people are a little bit more, you know, standoffish or have a lot of misconceptions or misunderstandings. So with adults in a prison kind of inmate setting, I did a book group. So we would do the book group that people were doing on the outside. So if people would go to the outside, they could continue kind of with this if they wanted, and did one group that was related to Japanese internment and, you know, living in the States. And I thought people would really react positively to it. And it had an elder in it. And it was interesting kind of what that brought up to kind of, you know, have the discussions and trying to use the book and just kind of getting into the people and kind of trying to picture yourself, what would it be like and who could they connect with? And I did different books. So it was interesting to see how people moved along. And I'm not quite sure how this is going to go, but I really would like to develop a more developed lesson with the banned book club. And I started reading that a little bit with some kids, and I still want to figure out how to do it a little bit more. And some of the kids were very standoffish, but I was really starting to try to say, how can you connect to this? Where are the connections? Where are the similarities with what's happening in America right now? What's happening in this book? And so trying to find ways to kind of cross connect. And it was kind of an interesting book, and it's kind of topical. So I think that I want to kind of read the full book, because I still haven't, because I ended up changing schools. And, you know, I want to bring it to my new school and kind of have more resources that kind of connect to various cultures. They're trying to expand that kind of basis in our curriculum. And so I feel like that would be a really good piece to kind of touch on a few different areas. And it's interesting because it does bring in a lot of history, so that makes it challenging. But even if it's about America, I just did a unit on Hamilton, and I'm from Canada, so there's that. And it's like the entire history of, you know, the Revolutionary War, all this stuff, which I, you know, touched on briefly as a Canadian, but don't really remember, and also have a very different view of how things have to go. So that was kind of interesting. And, you know, even with the kids, we had to, you know, they didn't know a lot about it either. So we had to learn a lot of history along with, you know, the story. So I want to have a little bit more in my tool house than I had when I got to the Revolutionary War when I do that book. So.
Thank you. And actually, what you brought up brings up something interesting that I wanted to address, and that is that what we'll be covering in this seminar is basically looking at graphic novels and you know, children's books that pertain, you know, specifically to Asian cultures. Like you brought up the Japanese internment. I teach Asian American history as well, but it's not really what we do here. However, some of our readings will kind of skirt the edges almost between Asian and Asian American history. Like the name jar has to do with, you know, somebody who is a new immigrant from Korea to the United States. Or Vietnam America, you know, you have somebody who is Vietnamese American who's then looking back at Vietnam and trying to understand the dynamics there. And then in turn, like For Immigrants Manga, we've got somebody who is Japanese, who is trying to understand life in San Francisco in the early 20th century. So we sometimes, with some of our readings and presenters, we'll be skirting pretty close. Part of the reason for that is because there's an awful lot of writing these days that's being done about Asian American experience. And I'm a big fan of that stuff, but it's not NCTA's mission directly.
I have to say that the nice thing about Banned Book Club and the challenge, but the good part too, is that it is going through a lot of Korean history. So
right, it's set in Korea.
So that'll be nice to hear a little bit more. I mean, I have been to Korea and I know a little bit about it, but I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that and having a richer picture of things. So
yeah, some of our speakers, so for example, we'll have a speaker, a friend of mine named Jeff Long from Bloomsburg University. So his presentation will be on a major event in Korea in the late 1500s when Japan invaded Korea. But as a part of that, he's going to talk about a children's book on this subject in English. I'm not sure he's read it yet, but he will by the time he presents.
Is that the turtle boats? Is that the
one? It has to do with the turtle ships, yes. Yeah. The ships that Koreans built to defend themselves against the invasion. Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's a little early, but why don't we go ahead and take a break for a couple of minutes, like maybe about 10 minutes, and then we'll go on to Jason will be presenting how Weebly works, how the website works, and how you'll be interacting with it. So why don't we take a break till about 7:15. And we'll be back. Thank you.
Okay.
David, can you see see the webpage? No,
Yes, I can.
okay.
Yep.
Lindsay, before we get going, I have to ask now, what school are you in? Are you teaching in?
So I actually had my methods for teaching social studies with you.
I know you did. That's why
I don't know, 2012 or something.
Yes, it's been a while because I have to say I'm here full time now. I'm probably a little more seasoned than when you had me.
Yeah, well, I remember because there was only like 4 of us in the class and we just kind of hung out. It was fun. Yeah, so I'm at North Middle. I've been here the whole time. So I got a job doing special ed. Because people die in these positions, these social studies positions. So they weren't like, So yeah, so I started here doing special ed for 2 years and I returned to Shepherd and got my MACI with the multi-cat special ed, and then graduated in 2017. And then as I graduated, I told my principal, I said, listen, I have loved my time in special ed, but like, I really want to go back to history. So like, I'm going to do that next year, whether it's here or somewhere else. So she said, oh, we'll get you one. So I've been doing 7th grade ever since then. So and I love it. These kids they're great. Like I love every bit of it. So
before I get going, I have to ask, have you had any student teachers?
yeah, well, okay, not like official ones, but I've had several social studies people in like education, like 443 and 36 or 320, so like field observations, but because we hit all the demographic marks for that,
We might have to put you on the list. I think you
Yeah.
had someone that was getting you got some rave reviews recently, so.
Well, that's good because I did get one that was, I actually got 2 for a class. I know that like coming out of the pandemic, it's been like really rough. Okay. Like it's been rough, but like they were wild. Okay. It wasn't a great experience. And after the first one, I learned it. And the second one, I kind of tore them up a little bit, but so they got like a email from me that was not probably really nice, but it was very detailed because I wanted to make sure, like, I don't want, them to get out here and be like, oh, I can't just, roll out of bed at, 11:30 and show up. Like it was stuff like that. And I was like, that probably needs like addressed. But yeah, no, I would love to have like a real one. And one that's like ready to go. But yeah, it's been a learning experience being on the other side of that for sure. But
we might have to get you one. Well, I was going to say, and I guess this is a little bit of a segue into what I have to cover. I think everyone looks like they're back. I was going to say the conversation a minute ago was like really good. And actually, just to kind of chime in, when Dave and Lindsay were talking, I kept thinking about, I also taught 7th grade for a long time. And one thing I always ran into was state standard. The students had no worldly knowledge until they hit 7th grade. I don't know how it is in Michigan, Dave, but in West Virginia, they have nothing related to world history.
That's brutal.
Yeah, until they get to 7th grade. It is, I remember arguing with a student about Egypt was in Asia for at least 2 months. Even though I showed it to him on a map, he still would argue that point. So I don't know. It was very interesting talk. So I think everyone's back. I think, is Dave on there?
Kanitra's here. No, I don't see David.
Okay. Might wait 1 sec.
I just want to follow up, like I used to teach in Morgantown, West Virginia. Like
I have 2 degrees from Morgantown, West Virginia.
like 12 years ago, and I work with I think 7th grader and 8th grade. I'm surprised they didn't really learn the world geography, and they didn't even teach the American geography. They just teach West Virginia. Yeah.
Actually, you know what? That's why when David or Dr. Gordon asked the question about like some of the hindrances, I was trying to not unmute. And I think a lot of it, I think states don't help at all related to a lot of the times there's just no world history, no geography until they get to middle school, later grades. And you're right, 8th grade is nothing but West Virginia and West Virginia. So, but
Morgantown is kind of a big city in West Virginia, right? And it's it's 2012. No, oh, sorry, I make mistake. It's 2008. So
Mm-hmm.
it's quite a long time ago. But still, I find it is kind of shocking.
Oh, it's insane. Like I say, I remember I had a student who was positive that Egypt was in Asia, and he would just not give it up. So, Dr. Gordon, should I go ahead and go, or should I wait a minute for Dave? Or
I think you can go ahead.
okay, well, one, we're going to do an intro here after I do all this for everyone. I think just to kind of get to know. I know we've done that slightly here, but I wanted to show how we're going to collect everything, get information out to everyone. What we decided to do, I'm definitely a keep it simple type person, and the website seemed to be the best way to get this information out to everyone as we start to have our sessions. So I'm going to break the website down, mainly because this way you can just click on the links. We've tried Google Classrooms before, and that's caused some problems because some people have school counts and such. So we have a website. I should have sent it to everyone in the chat. I'll make sure that I send it out in the email. It'll be updated probably daily with a lot of handouts and things like that. But just to kind of go over it, that's our home page. But if you ever need the syllabus, it is right here. And this is the most recent syllabus. I know I had sent one out earlier, and I think I mentioned that it might be updated or altered. This one's fresh off the presses, so to speak, or hot off the presses. So it is all right there if you need it. Another thing that I'm going to try and make sure, and I will make the commitment that I shouldn't say try, I will do. I decided to make a daily announcement page. So whenever you click on this, when we meet in the summer or in June, I'll try to keep at least the next 2 days online. But right now I have our orientation and just our day. I know it's kind of a summary of what's on the syllabus, but just to kind of give you a more streamlined version and to reinforce there is homework each evening. It's nothing, it's pretty straightforward stuff, but just so you know where it is, if you need to find it, it will be posted.
Right, and that, thank you. That homework will need to be adjusted a little bit because of what I added to the syllabus.
I was going to say, this is based off the
At
old
least one
syllabus.
on there.
But is it for tonight that we need to fix it?
Not necessarily, but people should be aware
Okay,
that the
we'll go back
reading
to
is
the
a little
syllabus,
more
maybe just work off of that
listed
one.
on this page.
Okay. But we will definitely have a daily announcement, and I'll try to keep the next day, like I say, a day or two on there if you need it. The next one is NCTA information. I don't know. I know some people have done sessions or workshops or seminars with NCTA, but if you are not familiar with them, they have a plethora of resources. So I wanted to make sure we had sites up related to it, just so if you ever need the resource. And this site, I'll probably just keep up as long as Weebly's free, it'll be up for you to have access to it. But just to kind of show you, if you need any background information, and Dr. Gordon did a wonderful job going over the background, but here is their website. And a lot of times they'll talk about the Freeman Book Award winners. Obviously in our seminar, we're going to talk about graphic novels and different books, but there are so many that you can go through. And these sources are always, the Freeman winners are always great resources for your classes. And you can definitely look through
I
those.
should point out that this one won this past year.
Oh, there you go. So,
Congrats.
oh, right there,
Mhm.
winner. It's official. And then, like I say, these are all there if you ever want to check out anything. There's sites also. I mean, as you can see, there's resources, there's videos, interviews, tons of things. It's very similar I'm not trying to make the comparison, but it just as a website, I know a lot of teachers use it. If you've used anything for the National Holocaust Museum, it's a very similar type site where they have the videos up that you can use and incorporate in your classes, resources. And I'm going to show you, there's tons of lesson plans here in a moment. I'm just going to jump back. Might be this the easiest. Well, excuse me, I can't see very well because of that. There we go. All right. Our seminar site, I think everyone's seen this, but just in case you need a little bit of background information, there's kind of the overview. And again, I think Dr. Gordon highlighted it, and it's on the syllabus. I know this applies differently with people who have attended seminars before in the past and those who haven't. But the general things is You will get teaching materials with this class, including a textbook. I think everyone we've reached out to, you should be getting the second edition of the Holcomb book and things. You do get a $300 stipend if you have not done a seminar in the past through NCTA Asia. And that's contingent though upon attendance. It's and completing the assignments and things of that nature. And also there are other benefits that you can get there, as you say, the study tours. By the way, I should highlight that out. If you're ever interested in traveling to Asia, I have not personally done one, but NCTA Asia does a lot of discounted study tours to Asian countries. I think they're getting ready to do a big one to Japan. I'm correct on that, right, Dr. Gordon? It is
I
Japan.
think so,
Right?
next month.
Yeah. So a lot of good things here, and you can check that out if you need anything on our background. And you see how I did that set up. The last thing I wanted to show you on the NCTA information, this is something called Eagle, and Eagle has lesson plans and again, more resources that are in here. What we're actually hoping, after you submit your lesson plans for this seminar, they like us to upload them to the Eagle as a reference or a resource for other teachers. It's supposed to be just kind of almost like a group where we share ideas and such, but there are tons of things on here. If you ever want to check it out, it is there for you. Like I say, it's called Eagle. It's lesson plans related to different readings, different topics in Asian history. As you can see, I can click on it.
And where on this do people submit their reviews of materials?
That is a good question. You know what? Recent reviews. I am not, you know what? I will find that out because I have never done a review on the Eagle site. I do know you can click on the database and you can do any type of search that you want there. But let's just click one. Let's see if we can maybe back into learn how. Looks like there's some harsh reviewers actually. But yeah, Chinese, and there's the URL reviews. Oh, you can just log in once you join the site and you can do a review, just like Amazon or any place like that.
Right, so that's one of the things you need to do by June 12th is sign up for the site,
Yes.
register with the site itself.
Yeah, and actually I can just go back there. It's just like any other site. When you go in and just log in, it should just ask you if you need to create a new account. There. And that's Eagle. And I think I did label it Eagle on the site, so you can locate it pretty easy. I'll send a reminder out to everyone for that. But again, you can, as you can see, there's different types of things. There's magazine, article, artwork, things like that. They really want to build the site up. That's one thing I know have been stressing to us because they really want to get materials out to teachers. That's really, I think, a lot of the goal. Well, that is the goal with all of this. So, you know, what's the saying? Good teachers steal. I think that's kind of like what they're kind of the philosophy with this, so to speak. If you want to be nice, good teachers borrow. So. Whoops. Sorry. Wrong thing. And there's in there. And one more thing I may add on here if you want to check it out. Our session is actually directed out of NCTA Pittsburgh from the University of Pittsburgh. I have the national site on there. If you want to check out the one for Pitt, I think it kind of has a lot of the same links, but I probably should put it up there just in case you want to check it out.
I think the seminar site is a page within that.
Oh, okay. Oh, there it is. There, good catch right there. And you can go here. So, we got all that. So, good.
Yeah.
Sorry, as I keep opening things.
I should note I chose the art.
Yeah, actually, if you want to check out the art, I learned a lot. I have to admit my background, I'm probably doing this before the icebreakers a little bit. I am a history major, and then I did my master's in teaching and then my doctorate in curriculum instruction. I definitely have more of a Western history background. Dr. Gordon's really been educating me on all these images. If you look, the artists are down there at the bottom. If you want to check them out. I believe this was the first manga, correct, Doctor? Well, it's sometimes called the first manga.
Exact. Yeah. So you'll notice you have like a Zen priest or a Buddhist priest anyway, who's a monkey praying to a Buddha who's a frog. This is part of a long scroll, and actually the scroll is located at a Zen temple in Japan. So it's not seen as sacrilegious, it's seen as sort of a fun approach.
Yeah.
to the
And this
religion.
one was actually she was a young prodigy, a lot of cool artwork, who I believe she still is an artist, but I think weirdly, her apex, I think, was when she was young. So a lot like, I guess, a lot of singers. So, and then
Mhm.
there's some more on the manga, I think, and such. And this was another one. I don't know. Did you want to tell them a little bit about that one, Dr. Gordon? I have to admit, other than being creepy, I'm kind of lost.
Sure. Yeah, I think he also did a lot of calligraphy as well. But yeah, one of the things he's famous for is the delicacy with which he painted shrimp. And he, even though he's Chinese, he's also very well known and respected in Japan as well.
Actually, when I typed his name in and shrimp, there was multiple works of shrimp. Which was kind of neat and kind of unique.
Mhm.
Our submissions for assignments. I have decided, we've went back and forth on how to do this over the years. I have created assignment boxes. I have done it in Google Forms. So when you do your reflections for each class, you should be able to just click right here. This is the dream. And just attach it as a Word file. And it should come to me. If you have problems with this, email it to me. I'll post it. But I think everyone should be fine. I will ask this question. Is there anyone that doesn't have a Google account just as backup? Then you'll definitely be fine. Because when you log in, it might ask for something like, there's my account, and it's just to submit. I don't know if it requires it to submit it off of the site, but if not, it may ask you to log into Google to submit it. But it just seems to be the easiest way to do it, and it's all in one. It's a one-stop shop. I set those up for each one, but this is going to kind of streamline also with what Dr. Gordon was talking about, the mini grant request that he said you have to complete later. It's also here, and it's already up as the form and everything else. So everything that you need as far as the assignment should be on that page. Sorry, I have that thing right at the top for my Zoom, and it kind of messes me up a little bit. The lesson plan, they'll be the same thing. They're all in forms. So when you just log it in, it'll just go to forms as a file attachment. You can do it in Word or submit it as a PDF, will be great. If you're an Apple lover, I like Apple also. If you could, though, could you convert it to a PDF? Because if you submit it in Pages or something like that, I don't know if our computers, I don't know if are you an Apple person, Dr. Gordon?
Not really. I think what we need to figure out is whether they're best or not.
Yeah.
Because if we're planning to make any comments in the margins, then we would need it to be in Word.
Okay.
But we're going to need to figure that out.
Well, actually, as long as if they're an Apple and they have Pages, you can save it as a Word document. So if anyone needs help with that, I can definitely help. So it's very easy to do. So
Okay,
or
great.
they can send it to me and I can submit it. Either one works. We'll get it posted. So, but that's all you need to do there is just click on the submissions and we should get them. But like I say, if you're in a desperate situation, just email it and I'll make sure it gets posted for you. But that's where this will be your submission page. These are probably the most important sites right off the top, but we do have these also where, again, they're listed on the syllabus, but I did list all of our sessions, and sometimes our speakers are nice enough to provide the handouts to us, like when they use PowerPoints or anything like that, or maybe they use a YouTube video to show something and they provide the link. I will make sure to list any handouts that they have underneath each session. So if Protest in Chinese History, Dr. Kinley has a PowerPoint, I'll make sure it is right there underneath of it, and you'll have access to it. And some, I think when we do things such like in the past when we've done calligraphy, she's had specific videos that she's had on YouTube. We've done things and posted those. So that is kind of, again, handout spot, week 1, week 2. Orientation question or stuff for tonight. This will all be here. The questionnaire that Dr. Gordon mentioned earlier is posted right here. So all you have to do is click it. I'll probably send out either tonight or tomorrow. If I send it out tomorrow, it might be a little later in the afternoon because we have graduation tomorrow. But I'll make sure to send it also but that's the questionnaire you need to fill out. I think the application information sheet, I put it up there. Dr. Gordon, do they complete that when they're doing the initial application?
Yeah, I think anybody who's in here now has already applied.
I might take that off. You just need the entry questionnaire is the one that you need to do.
Mhm.
And
Right.
it will be up there. It's already ready to roll, just to show you what it's got all about. Again, same kind of format. So.
Mhm.
And that is there. We'll come back to these questions. I will also post the PowerPoint that Dr. Gordon was using tonight. It'll be here if you need it, if you want to check it out. And also, since I'm recording this, I'll have a password for the video to access it. But if you need to catch up on anything, or if you missed something, you want to like review it or hear it or something along those lines, it'll be also up. Excuse me. And finally, maybe the most important thing, I guess, in some regards, so we don't forget. As you can see, there's nothing there. What we need to establish, and actually, you're all going to be the big shots in all of this, because honestly, it looks like we've lost some people and some people didn't show up tonight. We need to set a follow-up date or day in September. And I have to admit, when we're originally doing the orientation, it's a darned if you do, darned if you don't, because you don't know what days work for everyone. Sometimes Friday evenings are best. We've found in the past, sometimes Saturday mornings are better. I know the school year will have started in September. NCTA likes us to do the follow-up sessions in September. Is there any day that works best? I guess what I'm asking is we kind of need to spitball what days work best for everyone. And I think, I don't want to speak for Dr. Gordon, but I think in the past we've been pretty flexible. So don't feel shy about throwing out what day might work best for you.
Friday evenings are not good.
Okay.
Long work week, very tired. Friday evenings is out. Anything else is fine, but not Friday evenings like today.
Right.
It's pretty difficult.
Does Saturday morning work?
Saturday morning, I'm sorry, did you say Saturday morning?
Yes. Yeah, does that work?
That's fine. Any other time works for me. Just not Friday evening at 6 o'clock. Well, Central Time, 6 o'clock.
5.
Well, 5. Yeah.
What, Lindsay, Bonnie, Cindy, would Saturday morning work best for you all, or would that be okay with you all?
Yeah,
Thumbs up.
Saturdays are good.
Okay.
Friday, it is a little bit rough. I mean, I know that it's not like I'm doing anything else right now, but it is a long week, and I was like, oh, not that I'm, not happy to be here, but so Saturday mornings, I'm a little more bright-eyed and bushy-tailed then,
Okay.
Mhm.
Bonnie, is Saturday morning okay with you?
I mean, I think that would probably be the safest.
Mhm.
I don't really know that. Well, actually, if it's after 6, I don't know about you guys, but that weekdays would probably be fine. Like different days at school, but who knows what they're gonna have. But
What scared me during the week a little bit I didn't know even though this is probably geared more to elementary and middle school, we do a lot of times have high school teachers, and a lot of times Friday night light stuff kind of comes into play a little bit and stuff like that. And I know coaching and things like that. So I think we were maybe think Saturday morning would be best, but it sounds like that would be. Should we go ahead and pick a day, Dr. Gordon?
Yeah, do you have
Oh man, I got the
Calendar.
calendar up. I'm even going to raise this glasses because my eyes are getting old. We've got
probably not Labor Day weekend?
no. Well, I was going to say, would it be easier once the school year's kind of rolled in a little bit, maybe like the 23rd or 30th? Would the 23rd work? I know it's a little hard to project, but I feel like maybe everyone, I guess the routines will be a little more established at that point.
It works for me.
Okay, we'll go with it. How about we'll do 9/23 or September 23rd. Usually we do 9 in the morning. I know
Mhm.
you were usually people like to get out and be done by noon. So I know it would be 8 in the central. Is that it? But if we do that, I think that's usually what most people like, so they still have their Saturday in the afternoon to kind of do what they need to do. So, okay, well, I'll set that up. 9/23/23 at 9/12. Okay, good deal. So that is the webpage. I don't know, are there any questions?
I have a quick question, and you'll probably cover this later, but it's the only thing I was thinking of. For the upcoming assignments, the pre-journal entries, are they gonna be like tailored to whatever we were supposed to be reading up on, or is it gonna be more like open-ended or like, I don't know, I guess that's my question.
No, that's a good question. Did you want to take that one, Dr. Gordon, or?
Yeah. I think there are a few questions that get asked that are that are sort of like they can apply to any reading. Sort of like I forget exactly what they are, but they're things like, what was the main point? What did you feel was the main point of this reading? How might this work with the teaching that you do? Do you know any other resources that are associated with this topic? I think they're just sort of a couple of basic questions that apply to each reading, or at least each day's readings.
Okay, thanks.
So it's semi-tailored.
Well, and you know,
Tailored
just
but broad.
yeah, it is broad. It's kind of a reflection type thing. So, also, I'm kind of glad you asked that question because it made me think with the lesson plan, and we'll talk a little more about this in June. But there's no, we're not trying to, how can I say this? Teachers plan and set up lesson plans different ways. We're really just going to be looking for, what I'm going to be looking for is the basic tenets of what a lesson plan is. You know, what are the objectives? What standards do they align to? I'm assuming they're going to align to your all state standards. You know, how are you assessing it? You know, I guess the kind of 5 E's things. And it's just a lesson plan. It doesn't have to be a full-blown unit. Like, actually, Lindsay and I were talking, she was in methodology. You had to do a unit plan in that, which can be a little, everyone knows that can get a little, we're not looking for that. We're just looking for a lesson plan. It's just got to have the basic tenets, you know, and have that set up. So, and then we can talk about the book and movie review. Actually, I'll click that on there. There's also one on there. We'll talk a little more about that, but actually Eagle has a list of those resources and we'll go over some of them. You have to do a review on either the book or a movie. So.
And it could be one of the books that we read in the section, if you like.
And as someone, I know it was mentioned earlier, like I had never read Barefoot in either. I read it about a month ago, and there's so much you can do with that book just in alone. And also, I'm sure when we do the session, they'll get into it, but it's many books that were one and some pretty heavy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's the website. Any other questions? All right. We got one big thing to do. I think we've lost some in the iceberg of the icebreaker. We're kind of doing this a little circumventing it back, but we did kind of want to do a little bit of icebreakers just to kind of know where everyone's coming from. And actually, I thought about all these good Zoom ways that we could do this and what, you know, what are fun activities? What are some Zoom icebreakers? And then I got to thinking, I agree, you know, it's Friday. I thought, well, everyone's probably want to let's just get nuts and bolts stuff. So there was a few things that I kind of wanted to find out from everyone. It'll help us for the future and just to kind of get to know where we're all coming from, because we have participants and we will have more. There's a few that had some family issues, weddings and such. One person's actually flying to the Philippines right now. We have people basically from Delaware all the way out to, I think, Wisconsin. I think you might be the farthest west. And we have Michigan, Ohio, Delaware, West Virginia. Actually, for some reason, we have no Maryland, I don't think, this year. And usually we have a bunch of Maryland. So basically what I wanted to find out, or we wanted to find out, is just a few things about you and where you teach and things. I put some questions up there, but, you know, your name, where you're from, what grade subject you're teaching. I know a lot of people have already said that. Could you give just a little bit about your school district? And this sounds kind of like a unique question for a seminar like this, but we do all seem to be coming from different places. An example that I was thinking of, David and I were talking about it the other day. We had someone who it came up, it was a session on yoga they were talking about, and actually yoga is banned. I think it was in Alabama and a couple of counties there. And there was someone from Montgomery County, Maryland, who couldn't get over that because they have yoga classes. It just gives us a little bit of an idea where everyone's coming from. It's not to poo-poo on any districts or anything, but just, you know, is it a rural, is it a diverse district? Is it small, large, anything like that? What you're hoping to take out of this seminar, what maybe drew it to you or drew the seminar, what drew you to the seminar? If you could give a little bit of your teaching style, maybe some hobbies that you enjoy. I'm going to ask everyone to kind of nail all of these in some aspect, and just any questions you have in general for the seminar. Just to kind of give you an example, you know, I'm Jason Allen from Berkeley County, West Virginia, Martinsburg, West Virginia. I actually was a middle school teacher. I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th. Did a little bit of high school, but mostly did middle school. District that I was in, second largest now, I guess, in West Virginia. I don't want to ruin this because Lindsay's in the same district, so I'm not going to say much more than that. I would say it's more suburban at this point, though. What I'm hoping to take out, I kind of alluded to this. I've done multiple seminars now with Dr. Gordon. One thing, like I said, when I did my history degree, it wasn't really world history. It was more like a Western Civ type focus. So I'm always picking up things, taking notes in these. So I just feel like it expands my repertoire. Also, I like hearing from, I've been at Shepherd now for full-time now for 4 years. And I'm sure you all know this, as you get a little more removed from the K-12 world, you kind of lose, you know, there's always cool tools that you can pick up, techniques, issues. We're in a post-pandemic world. And sometimes the issues that I was facing pre-2020, they're non-existent now because there's a whole new set of issues. As a teacher, I would just go energetic. Hobbies, I basically have 3. I like to travel, like to golf, like to read, sometimes hang out with my family. If I can do all 3, that's great, like together, but you know, depends how they're getting on my nerves or not. Kind of it. So we have 4 people left. Is there anyone that would love to share a little bit about themselves? I can call on you, but I don't want to do that. Go for it, Lindsay.
I'll go.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, go ahead.
My name is Kenitra Childress. I teach, as I stated earlier, from K through 12. I'm a library media specialist. I'm originally from, you wouldn't know, it's like 2 hours from Chicago. I've been living abroad in Qatar, like I said, I think it was technically 8 years, but altogether I was living abroad for maybe a total of 15. I moved back because of COVID. I moved back to the United States in 2020, the 19th of May. I teach at an urban school. It's a big district. It's Milwaukee Public Schools. So that's it's a challenge from where coming from Qatar to here. It's culturally different. My teaching style, just like you, I'm energetic because we have to do lesson plans too as librarians. And I want the kids to know that there's more than just Milwaukee. There's more. There's so much more. And if they can make their own graphic novel, that's what I really want to promote. I really want them to know you can do a book too, and a graphic novel book. You really can. Yeah, that's it.
Can I ask you a quick, just to follow up, like, what have been the differences between teaching in Qatar and teaching in the US?
Well, I can't speak as far as the US. I think that they're more closed-minded in their teaching style. Even though I was in an Arab country, you would think that they would be more, strict about what you present. They are with certain things, but they're open-minded because they're more worldly. Because over there, they seem to travel more. So they're open-minded to different cultures and understand the Western cultures, Eastern cultures, Latin culture. They know cultures because they are well traveled. Whereas United States, they seem to be English, I'm American. English, it should be spoken everywhere I go. You know, that type of mentality. And that's I see that as being a difference.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, I can say that.
Good deal. Thank you. So, Lindsay, I think you were next up.
Okay, well, as I said earlier, my name is Lindsay Shade. I am also from the same district that Dr. Allen is from. I grew up here, Berkeley County, West Virginia. I went to, a local high school. I teach 7th grade world history. My school district is, I would agree with that being suburban. I just had to do like a paper on it, and I wrote that it was a rural area, but it is probably a little more suburban. My school is located within the city limits. I had someone say the other day, like, that it's like the city school, and I'm like, I mean, it's a pretty rural area. I wouldn't really call it, something, like that, but it is within city limits. We're very diverse. We have like the most, I think we have we're the most percentage of a special education population at the middle school level in West
That's
Virginia.
true. I only knew that because I've seen the numbers.
Yeah, it's like wild. And we have, speaking of like ethnicities, we got all kinds. It is really, yeah. And so I kind of already mentioned this, but I'm hoping to get a couple things out of the seminar. What drew me to the seminar was, the juvenile literature, because I know that is very popular. And I briefly mentioned that I dabbled in some of these graphic novels and shows to relate to the kids. And I got a little more into it than I had anticipated. So that's like, I guess you could call that a hobby at this point. I thought it was a phase. It's not. And I also this summer, I'm hoping to, I've been working for like the past 6 years. I feel like in the summer. So I'm hoping to really take some time off and do things that I want to do. And I love history. And I actually took like 3 undergrad classes with Dr. Gordon on East Asian history. So, and I enjoyed them. So I'm interested. I want to fill my history cup back up, As a teacher, we do a lot of hands-on stuff. I'm a big proponent of like project-based learning. We do a lot of like simulations. I also kind of walk into it as like, I learn a lot from my students. They have a lot more life experience than I've ever had, or probably will ever have. So I learn a lot from them every day, and I hope they kind of just walk away with a little bit of something too. Yeah, I've been trying to, so that's basically it. I got a lot of hobbies, but they're, pretty much my own hobbies, like stuff I do by myself. I read, I walk, I watch TV. So that's about it.
I was going to say one thing too, just a little bit about the district, only because I'm familiar. I live in the same area that Lindsay is. There's 2 counties. There's Jefferson and Berkeley that are right next to each other. We're the only 2 counties I think that do not have any coal in West Virginia. We're so far east. Could be wrong on Berkeley. I'm not for 100% on that one, but definitely a little different than a lot of what people think about West Virginia, the area that we're in. So. Mm-hmm. Bonnie, did you want to go?
Sure. So I'm Bonnie Brunton. I live in Delaware right now. I'm from Canada originally. And I teach ELA grade 10 right now. I teach both academic and resource classes. We have an autism program at our school. So also, and then I have one class that's in EL, now it's becoming multi-language learners or multilingual learners. So I have one class that has basically newcomers all the way to people that are, kind of making their way, to students that are, have been born here and who, whatever. So it's challenging, the mix, but it's kind of interesting too. And the school district is fairly diverse. We have a lot of people who are Spanish speaking, and then other kind of, that's probably one of the biggest. And a lot of kids are bused from different places. So a lot of kids don't live near the people that they go to school with. A few do, which is kind of nice, but a lot of them kind of come to school and they come from all different areas from urban kind of settings. So what am I hoping to take out of the seminar? Well, and they don't get a lot of exposure. So recently we went on a trip to New York, which was great fun to bring some of the kids to New York City and, you know, to have them see that. So that was great. So I'm hoping to bring some things to the classroom though. I guess that's what I'm hoping to get out. I'm hoping to get the books because I also studied library studies. I haven't completely finished, but I love books. I love reading. I love writing. And I'm always trying to build my classroom library. So I've kind of built it up personally, and I'm starting again at this new school. Luckily, I have a nice librarian who will sometimes, you know, get books or if I need something or whatever. So hoping to tailor that and keep building my collection and have it be representative places in the world. And a lot of the kids are really into graphic novels or into Japanese metal and all sorts of things. But you know, kind of exposing them maybe to a little bit more about the cultures would be interesting to kind of expand that. So, and how am I as a teacher? I guess I like enrichment. I like creativity. I'm a creative person myself. You know, I write, I sketch, so I kind of like to have opportunities for the kids to do that and to kind of approach things and have some choice about who they're maybe researching or how they're going to present what they're doing, and, you know, maybe using creative means. So it could be a play. The thing I remember from social studies the most when I was in grade 7 was writing a play about this event that happened in Canadian history. I think it is the only event, one of the few events I recall. I will not say it's the only, but it is one of the few. So I do think that people retain what they do in kind of creative ways. So I'm kind of, and I would love to have them drawing some more, you know, graphic shorts. I've had them do 4 panels and want to maybe expose them to kind of the Japanese 4-panel type thing, but kind of maybe getting more inspiration from what we're reading here to kind of draw on for that. So hobbies and interests. Okay, what have you? I guess I love lots of things. I love swimming. I used to like sailing a lot. I don't really get a lot of chance to do that now. I love to read. I love to write. And I'm a bit of a pandemic gardener as well. Not a very successful one, but some of the time, some things work. And that's it. And I do have a question, but I'll probably ask you guys at the end to make sure things are good. So that's it.
You know what? It's funny. This is totally a session about Asian history and culture and such. But I was laughing when you said Canada, because one thing I talk about methods now is how Canada and Mexico, the 2 nations that border North America, are not in any standards anywhere, at least in West Virginia. So maybe a little bit of Mexican history, but not too much on Canada. So.
Well, and it was funny because I think, who was it talking about the history? Like, I remember as a kid when we were in grade 4, we had to learn every country in Africa and we had to make a geographical relief map and learn about different cultures, like the different countries. And we did a lot of different, so I don't know, the kids don't seem to know a lot about other places now. So it is kind of great to be able to find ways to just, travel virtually, in some ways, whether it's through a book, whether it's through information, whether it's whatever. So
thank you. Cindy, I think you're up, ma'am.
Okay. Hi. Well, my name is Xinzhi He, but I go by Cindy, just makes things easier because my name is just too tricky for English speaker. And I originally from China, Hunan province. Unfortunately, the hometown for Mao Zedong, yeah, that person come from my province. And I kind of start as a language teacher because in China, I teach English to Chinese teenager for like 8 years, and then I went to Morgantown to teach. I think I participated in the guest teacher exchange program organized by College Board. So that's my first time to work abroad, and it's fun. So I kind of have a special attachment with Morgantown because that's the first time to teach me how to deal with Western student and how to handle with the culture shock. And I think that's very rewarding and very special experience, which contributed to my future. And then I left, I went to UK and I worked there. I got my master degree for multilingualism. I find yeah, it's very interesting. So now I end up in Pennsylvania, Northwest, kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's definitely a rural area. It's I think like half an hour away from Ohio and not far away from Cleveland, 1 hour and a half from Pittsburgh, but we're in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, and I think well, for this seminar, I'm kind of interested in how American mainstream school to teach like East Asian culture, because I would say East Asian culture kind of foreign, exotic, and not really designed to integrate into a 12 curriculum based on my like 14 years ago, the traveling and working experience. But I can see there's a big improvement and progress in the past decades. And I'm really enjoying teaching in this college, and my students are very smart and hardworking. So yeah, I think it's such a pleasant. So for myself, I would call myself as a global citizen because this is my 8th year living and working abroad. Well, basically in English speaking country. And as a teacher, I think I'm kind of try to building up the student and the teacher relationship, because when the teacher care your students and the student feel like have that trust or faith on you, then they tend to follow you and follow the instruction much better. So in China, I'm a classroom teacher. So in Chinese education system, we're kind of pushy and very strict and disciplined, which is kind of different from Western culture, because I would say Western culture is kind of forgiving and give them freedom to select. So this option 1, if you go with it, then that is a consequence. And option 2, blah, blah, blah. But for East Asian, we're kind of like, you have to be successful. A- is unacceptable. So that kind of mindset give me a little bit, I need to adjust, like switch back and forth between those two like mindset or value system. So I would say I develop like split identity, because sometimes I have to tell myself I'm in America, so I need to behave like this way. But because I was born and grew up in China, so that like mindset is, my brain is programmed in that way. So I kind of give reaction automatically. So I have to process a little bit instead of like, oh, blah, blah, blah. So I will think about that and then deal with my students to make them feel acceptable. So yeah, that's it for the hobby. Since I think I'm kind of global citizen, so I enjoy traveling. When I was studying and working in UK, I traveled like 10 country in European area, but a European country is very small, and it's very easy to travel with one visa. So London is also well connected with all the other hub or international cities. So I really enjoy that time. And so for this seminar, I would like to know more about like Japan and the South Korean, because I'm pretty sure I know quite a good amount of China and Chinese history or culture thing. So that would be interesting for me to know the Japanese or South Korea. I used to take Japanese language during my college time for 2 years, but it's kind of like you study the grammar and you memorize the vocab and then you just do practice. So I don't really think my language skill in Japanese will go anywhere. So it's like it doesn't function at all. So I would like to know more about their culture and also some other like custom or history, some go deep. Yeah, and another thing is I'm the only child generation. So in China, I think the older generation call our generation as like lost generation because we were born into like one child in the family. So we think our self like we're the center of the universe, so we tend to be spoiled, but nowadays we turn out to be the backbone the society anyhow because we get to that age, right? So I would like to say we kind of develop the individuality, but we also still under influence of the older tradition like Confucianism and show respect to the ancestor and follow the older generation's direction. So there's a little bit like a clash in value system, but we kind of develop our own sense. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, I'd like to comment a little on a couple of these. So first of all, thank you very much. A couple of you mentioned libraries, and I want to point out that we will be having a librarian give a presentation. He's actually a close friend of mine, Nick Schenkel, on day 8, so Wednesday of the second week. He'll be talking about teacher coordination with public libraries, because he's been a librarian for over 40 years now and has some things to say about this issue, this topic. Second, I want to point out, actually, my wife is Chinese from the city of Wuhan, so Hubei province, which is just north of Hunan province. And she is about my age, so she's from a generation when it was not one child per family. So she has 3 siblings, so 1 sister and 2 brothers. And she really likes to travel. And so like actually the middle of this month, we're going to be going to Puerto Rico because she was interested originally taking a cruise in the Caribbean, and then but that didn't look quite like we'd be able to spend enough time at any one place. So instead, we're just going to be spending about a week there. So Bonnie, you mentioned when you're bringing up Canada, as I do also teach Asian American history, there's a very interesting graphic novel called Escape to Gold Mountain, which has to do with sort of the interconnections of Chinese immigrants to the US and to Canada, and even how they're moving back and forth and working on like, let's say, building the railway, the Canadian Pacific Railway, and then the Transcontinental Railroad within the US. So there are works that kind of actually bridge both of those histories. So those are some of my main comments. Hopefully those also serve as telling you a little bit more about myself as well.
Wait, I was gonna just chime in because we have a few that we have 2 student teachers who are going to be actually joining us. I won't give their backgrounds or anything on that, but their names are Billy and Victoria. Just to let you know, they're actually very interested in this, and hopefully they'll be able to pick up some things from you all and all of your all's expertise. That was one reason why we've actually started to open this up to more student teachers and pre-service teachers, because they're finding that they're getting a lot of the skill sets from people who are actually in the real world and trying to teach these topics. So they're very excited. And also we have another repeat attendee, hopefully. His name is William. He's from around Philadelphia, and he is actually, I believe, started and he did a seminar with us. I think he has an Asian Cultures Club. I don't want to mistitle that. Am I correct on that, Dr. Gordon, I think he does that. So you'll also see their names, hopefully. Billy is actually from the Philippines, and I believe he is actually on a plane to the Philippines. He was going to try to zoom in, but it just wasn't working. So
Right.
there'll be some other names that you will be seeing. So I think that was kind of my overview, Dr. Gordon.
Yeah, I think we're about done, actually.
Okay.
Partly because just we have fewer people.
Yeah, the icebreakers might have went a little longer. So, but I was going to say this. I'm definitely going to be sending out a follow-up. I'll probably send just you four some specific stuff like with the entry questions. Anyone who is attending the seminar, that just so you know, and that wasn't here tonight, they actually have to do something else on top of it. So just to let you know, you all, by being here, you have actually gotten out of something. So, but we'll definitely be in touch. Hopefully, I think we do need an email. Am I correct on that, Dr. Gordon, that if you are going to
Yes, that's right.
attend the seminar starting on June the 12th, you just need to reply to Dr. Gordon or myself, or preferably both, that you are going to take part. It's from 9 to 12, and it'll be Monday through Friday, those 2 weeks. And then, of course, we'll do the follow-up session in September on the 23rd. That's kind of the nuts and bolts I think I have. I'll turn it over to Dr. Gordon if there's anything else that we need to add.
I think not really. Just, yes, the entry questionnaire, the entry survey, definitely get that done. And yeah, there will be some revision on the website in terms of what you need to have read before the first day. There's the reading for the first day is a little heavier than readings between days. In other words, once, because you have more time right now, or at least in the next 6 weeks or so, to read, as opposed to if we have like 2 sessions on a Tuesday, then by Wednesday morning, the amount of reading that you could do later that day and comment upon is going to be a good deal less. Although I think there are occasions where you'll be reading like an entire graphic novel for a day. And as Jason indicated, the one on the atomic bombing of Hiroshima is pretty somber. It's a pretty serious subject. So I think we're pretty much done for tonight. Let's see, Jason, you're muted.
I was gonna say, if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to stay after. I know Bonnie said she had a question, so, but I guess at that point, hopefully we will see everyone in June on June, and just fire us an email if you're gonna take part. And thank you very much for coming out and hanging out on a Friday evening.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks very much. It's very good to meet all of you, and thanks for
Nice meeting you all.
take care.
Hopefully I'll see you in June. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, I got a quick question
Mhm.
about the book.
I think we can turn off
Well,
the.
give me 1 sec. I'm gonna stop the recording so that you don't have to, I think.
Mhm.